Zeno of Citium from 334 BC to 262 BC, not to be confused with Zeno of Elea, known for his paradoxes. Zeno of Citium was the founder of Stoicism, a very influential Hellenistic school of philosophy. He taught in a public stoa in Athens, which gave the school its name. Zeno taught that the path to eudaimonia, flourishing or happiness, lies in living in harmony with reason and virtue, which he equated with living in harmony with the natural order of the universe, the logos. A central Stoic tenet is distinguishing between what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, judgments, and what is not, external events, other people's opinions, fate. Wisdom lies in focusing on what we can control and accepting what we cannot with equanimity. Unlike other philosophies that might value pleasure or wealth, Stoicism asserts that virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance is the only true good. Everything else is indifferent, though some indifference are preferred, like health, over others, like sickness. By practicing these principles, Stoics aim to achieve apatheia, a state of inner tranquility and freedom from disturbing passions, not apathy in the modern sense. Epicurus, from 341 BC to 270 BC, the founder of Epicureanism, another major Hellenistic school. He taught in a garden in Athens, where he and his followers lived a simple communal life. Epicurus is often misunderstood as advocating for excessive pleasure. In reality, he taught a sophisticated form of hedonism, where the ultimate goal of life is to achieve ataraxia, tranquility of mind, and aponia, absence of physical pain. He believed that true pleasure came from cultivating a serene mind, avoiding pain, and enjoying simple pleasures like food, conversation, and especially friendship. Excessive indulgence, he argued, often leads to greater pain and disturbance. Epicurus adopted Democritus' atomism, believing the universe consists only of atoms and the void. He argued against divine intervention and fear of death, stating that death is merely the dissolution of atoms, and therefore, when we are, death is not. When death is, we are not. The key to happiness for Epicurus was prudence, the ability to discern which pleasures lead to long-term tranquility and which lead to suffering. Democritus, from 460 BC to 370 BC, a pre-Socratic philosopher from Abdera, known as the laughing philosopher due to his cheerful disposition. Democritus, along with his teacher Leucippus, developed the earliest known theory of atomism. He proposed that all matter is composed of tiny, indivisible, unchangeable particles called atoms, Greek for uncuttable, moving in an infinite empty space called the void. His philosophy was purely materialistic. He believed that everything, including the soul, is made of atoms. There was no room for divine intervention or a non-physical realm. The movement and collision of atoms were governed by natural deterministic laws, implying that everything that happens is a necessary consequence of prior atomic motions. His atomic theory was a remarkable leap of intuition, anticipating concepts found in modern chemistry and physics by over 2 millennia. Parmenides, from 515 BC to 450 BC, a pre-Socratic philosopher from Elea, highly influential on Plato and foundational for metaphysics. Parmenides argued that change is an illusion, and that true reality or being is eternal, unchanging, indivisible, and timeless. He arrived at this conclusion through pure logical deduction, disregarding sensory experience. He argued that something either is or is not. If something is, it cannot come from not being, nothing, nor can it cease to be. Therefore, coming into being and ceasing to be are impossible. For Parmenides, saying something becomes implies it is not yet or is no longer, which he deemed logically incoherent because not being cannot exist. Thus, the apparent motion and change we observe in the world must be deceptive. Heraclitus, from 535 BC to 475 BC, a pre-Socratic philosopher from Ephesus, known for his enigmatic and often paradoxical statements. Heraclitus famously stated, "No man ever steps in the same river twice," emphasizing that everything is in constant change and flux. Reality is not static, but a perpetual flow. He believed that the underlying unity of the cosmos was maintained by the tension between opposing forces, hot and cold, day and night, life and death. These opposites are necessary for the world to exist and generate change. Heraclitus introduced the concept of the Logos, an eternal, universal principle or reason that governs all change and maintains cosmic order. He often associated this Logos with fire, which transforms and consumes but also illuminates. Pythagoras, from 570 BC to 495 BC, a philosopher, mathematician, and mystic from Samos, who founded a communal, philosophical, and religious movement in southern Italy. Pythagoras believed that numbers were the ultimate reality and the underlying principle of the universe. He observed numerical ratios in musical harmony and sought similar patterns in the cosmos, leading to the idea that all is number. His followers explored mathematical principles, famously developing the Pythagorean theorem, though its full proof might have come later. They saw cosmic order as a reflection of mathematical harmony. He taught that the soul is immortal and undergoes a cycle of rebirth, reincarnation into different bodies, both human and animal. The goal of life was a purification of the soul through ethical living, intellectual pursuit, and adherence to specific dietary and lifestyle rules. He established a disciplined community dedicated to intellectual and spiritual purification, emphasizing the pursuit of wisdom. Thales of Miletus, from 624 BC to 546 BC, considered the very first philosopher in the Western tradition, and one of the 7 sages of Greece. He hailed from Miletus in Ionia. Thales pioneered the move away from mythological explanations for natural phenomena and towards rational inquiry and observation. Instead of attributing events to gods, he sought natural principles. He proposed that water was the single fundamental element from which everything else originated and into which it ultimately dissolved. While his specific conclusion was incorrect, his method of searching for a universal underlying principle was revolutionary. He was also an astronomer and mathematician, credited with predicting a solar eclipse and applying geometrical principles to measure heights and distances. Aristotle, from 384 BC to 322 BC, Plato's most brilliant student at the academy and tutor to Alexander the Great. He founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato's focus on a separate realm of forms, Aristotle was deeply interested in the physical world. He believed knowledge primarily comes from sensory experience and careful observation of the natural world. He is often seen as the father of empirical science. Aristotle invented and formalized logic as a systematic method for reasoning. His system of syllogisms, deductive arguments, was the dominant form of logic for nearly 2 millennia. To understand anything, Aristotle proposed 4 causes. Material cause, what something is made of, a bronze statue. Formal cause, its form or essence, the shape of the statue. Efficient cause, what brought it into being, the sculptor. And final cause, its purpose or telos, to be a memorial. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle argued that the highest good for humans is a eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or human well-being. This is achieved by developing virtues, excellent character traits, through habit and by finding the golden mean between extremes. Courage is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. His writings covered an astonishing range of subjects: physics, biology, zoology, metaphysics, ethics, aesthetics, poetry, theater, music, rhetoric, linguistics, politics, and government. Plato, from 428 BC to 348 BC, a student of Socrates, deeply affected by his mentor's execution. He founded the Academy, one of the earliest Western universities. Plato's most famous and influential concept. He posited that the physical world we perceive is not the ultimate reality. Instead, there exists a higher, perfect, unchanging realm of forms or ideas. These forms are the true, eternal essences of everything, the perfect form of beauty, justice, or a circle. The objects we see in the physical world are merely imperfect copies or shadows of these perfect forms. This famous allegory from the Republic illustrates the theory of forms and the philosophical journey. It describes prisoners seeing only shadows on a cave wall, mistaking them for reality until one is freed to see the true world, the forms outside. It highlights the distinction between sensory illusion and intellectual truth. Plato's most significant work of political philosophy. He envisioned an ideal society ruled by philosopher kings, individuals who, having understood the forms of justice and goodness, are best qualified to govern wisely and justly. He proposed a distinction between the mortal soul, associated with reason and the realm of forms, and the mortal body, associated with the physical world and senses. Socrates, from 470 BC to 399 BC, the enigmatic gadfly of Athens. He wrote nothing himself. His profound impact comes entirely through the accounts of his students, especially Plato and Xenophon. Socrates shifted the focus of philosophy from cosmological speculation, like the pre-Socratics, to human ethics, morality, and the search for goodness. His central concern was how one should live. He famously declared that unexamined life is not worth living. He believed true wisdom lay in understanding one's own ignorance and constantly seeking to understand oneself and one's values. His revolutionary method of inquiry involved engaging others in dialogue, asking a series of probing questions to challenge their assumptions, reveal contradictions in their beliefs, and guide them towards a deeper understanding of concepts like justice, virtue, or piety. It was a method of intellectual midwifery. Socrates believed that no one knowingly does wrong. All wrongdoing stems from ignorance of what is truly good. Therefore, the path to a virtuous life is through self-knowledge and intellectual enlightenment. His ultimate act of philosophical conviction was his willingness to accept a death sentence by drinking hemlock rather than compromise his principles or abandon his mission of questioning and seeking truth in Athens.